Welcome back to Central Valley Entertainment. This is your Central California news update for April 27, 2026. Today we're covering public safety, crashes, local government, community events, and weather from around the region. As always, the source links are included so you can read the original reporting for yourself. For our first story, Metro Fire says one pedestrian died Monday morning near Roseville and Willerga Roads in Sacramento County after a train strike. CHP and Union Pacific are now investigating. Officials had not yet released the person's identity or what may have led up to the incident. Now that we're on the source article, the main thing to note is that this is still an active investigation. The report confirms that emergency crews responded and that one person was pronounced dead at the scene. At this point, officials had not released the victim's name, and they also had not explained exactly how the incident happened. That is important because train-related deaths often take time to piece together, especially when multiple agencies are involved. For now, the confirmed facts are limited, and what we'll be watching for next is whether CHP or Union Pacific releases more about the timeline, the crossing area, or the identity of the person who died. And on to our second story, a motorcyclist was hospitalized after a crash on northbound Highway 99 near 12th Avenue in Sacramento. CHP logs showed the crash involved a motorcycle and 3 other vehicles. The collision also caused traffic delays after at least one lane was blocked. Looking at the source report, this is one of those stories that matters both for public safety and for commuters. The confirmed details are that a motorcyclist was hurt, multiple vehicles were involved, and traffic backed up on Highway 99 after the crash. Because the early report came from CHP logs, some of the details may still change as officers finish the investigation. What is not yet clear is what caused the collision or how serious the rider's injuries are beyond needing medical attention. Motorcycle crashes can turn serious very quickly, so this is definitely one to keep an eye on for any follow-up update from CHP. For our third story, Stockton police say a 26-year-old bicyclist was shot at early Monday in the 1000 block of Trinity Parkway. The bicyclist was not hit and did not suffer injuries. Police had only limited suspect information at the time of the report. Now that we're on the source report, the key detail here is that although the victim was not physically injured, police are still treating this as a serious violent incident. According to the report, the bicyclist was shot at in the early morning hours, but the bullets did not strike him. That means investigators are now working with limited information while trying to figure out who fired the shots and why. The suspect description was minimal, and there was also little vehicle information released. So right now, this remains a developing investigation, and the next update will likely depend on witness statements, surveillance footage, or new information from Stockton police. And now to our fourth story. A 65-year-old e-bike rider was hospitalized in critical but stable condition after a crash near Edison High School in Fresno. Police say another e-bike rider, described as a juvenile, was not injured. Investigators also said neither rider was wearing a helmet. Looking at the source article, this is a serious traffic safety story, especially with the growing number of e-bike riders across Central California. The report says the older rider was taken to the hospital in critical but stable condition, which tells us the crash was significant. It also happened near Edison High School, so that brings even more attention to safety in school area traffic zones. Another important part of the report is that neither rider was wearing a helmet. Investigators were still working to determine exactly how the crash happened, so we do not yet have a full explanation. What we'll want to watch for next is whether police release more on fault, injuries, or any enforcement action. For our fifth story, McFarland police say a roadway shooting was reported Sunday afternoon on Industrial Street just before a parade and festival. Officers found evidence that shots had been fired in the roadway. No members of the public were reported injured, and police added extra security for the event. Now that we're on the source report, this story stands out because it happened right before a community event. According to police, officers found evidence confirming that gunfire had occurred in the roadway, but the good news is that no members of the public were reported hurt. Because this happened so close to a parade and festival, police responded by increasing security around Blanco Park and the surrounding area. That added security is a major part of why this story matters locally. At this point, investigators still have more questions to answer, including whether a suspect has been identified, whether the shooting was targeted, and whether any arrests are expected. And on to story number 6, a proposed 6-story apartment project on Alhambra Boulevard in East Sacramento is now heading to the city council after neighborhood groups appealed its approval. The project would bring 332 market-rate apartments to the area. Concerns include traffic, parking, privacy, and the overall scale of the project. Looking at the source article, this is a local government story that could have a real impact on one Sacramento neighborhood. The proposal would replace older uses in the area with a large housing development, and supporters see that as part of the broader need for more housing. On the other side, neighbors have raised concerns about traffic, parking pressure, height, and whether the building fits the character of the area. The Planning Commission already approved the project, but the appeal means the City Council will now take a closer look. So the next major step is that council decision, which will determine whether the project moves forward as planned or gets changed. For our 7th story, a report reviewed court records involving Madera County Supervisor candidate Charles Brooke Allen. Those records included a past vehicular manslaughter conviction while driving under the influence. The candidate responded by saying his past should not disqualify him, and voters will decide in the June primary. Now that we're on the source article, this is a story about public records, accountability, and a local election. The report says court records tied to the candidate include a past vehicular manslaughter conviction while DUI. Because this is a political story, it is important to stay careful and factual. The report is focused on documented records and the candidate's public response, not campaign rumors or speculation. The candidate said his past should not block him from serving, and now voters in District 5 will ultimately decide how much weight to give that history. This story matters because it touches directly on trust, judgment, and local leadership ahead of the primary. And now to our 8th story, the Ceres Hot Air Balloon Festival is taking a break in 2026. Organizers say they are now planning and fundraising for a possible return in 2027. In the meantime, several Modesto area events are still scheduled for May, including Wreckfest, Cinco de Mayo celebrations, Taco Fest, and local street fairs. Looking at the source report, this is more of a community and lifestyle update, but it is still important for families and local businesses. The Ceres Hot Air Balloon Festival has been a recognizable event for the area, so news that it is pausing this year will definitely disappoint some people. Organizers say they want to bring it back in 2027, which suggests this is more of a reset than a permanent ending. At the same time, the report also points out that the Modesto area still has a busy event calendar coming up in May. So while one major festival is on hold, there are still plenty of local activities on the way for residents to enjoy. For our 9th story, several upcoming events are being highlighted across Merced County and nearby communities. The May calendar includes Cinco de Mayo celebrations in Merced, Lao New Year events, Planada Community Day, Merced Art Festival Week, an open cockpit event at Castle Air Museum in Atwater, and Patterson's Apricot Fiesta later in the month. Now that we're on the source article, this is a useful community calendar update for families looking ahead to May. These events cover a wide mix of activities, from cultural celebrations and community gatherings to art events and museum experiences. That variety matters because events like these help bring people together while also supporting local vendors, nonprofits, and small businesses. For Merced, Planada, Atwater, and Patterson residents, this is a good early look at what is coming up over the next few weeks. It is also the kind of information that can help families plan weekends in advance, especially as spring events begin to pick up across the region. And for our 10th and final story, the weather outlook shows Sierra showers possibly continuing into Tuesday, while the valley is expected to stay mostly dry and warm up. Temperatures could reach the low 80s by Thursday and Friday. Forecasters also say a weekend system may bring cooler weather and more clouds. Looking at the weather report, the main takeaway is that most valley communities should see a calmer and warmer pattern for the next several days. The Sierra may still get showers into Tuesday, and higher elevations could even see some snow flurries, but for the valley floor, the bigger story is the warm-up. Highs are expected to climb into the low 80s later this week, which will feel like a notable shift after recent storm activity. For now, the trend looks warmer, drier, and more typical for late April across Central California. That's your Central California news update for today. Follow Central Valley Entertainment for more local news, crime updates, food, businesses, events, and community coverage from around the region. Visit centralvalleyentertainment.com, and if you want more daily updates like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow.